Welcome to the Peopling Podcast, where we hang out with brilliant human beings who teach us how to be better, well, humans, and decode what makes us tick and click. Inspired by the book Peopling, available on Amazon. Let's get this episode started.
Welcome to the Peopling Podcast, where we get to talk about what it really means to connect and to communicate and to grow through every season of life. Here we explore how people think and feel and relate from friendship to leadership, so that we can all people a little better. And I am so excited to get to introduce my friend and our VIP guest today. Today we have Gina Hansen. She's a nationally recognized leadership strategist, a real estate trainer, and a speaker known for her bold, inside-out approach to transforming people and performance. With over 2 decades in real estate, she has led top-performing teams, trained hundreds of agents, and built a reputation for turning untested talent into market-leading professionals. She's a former Keller Williams team leader and a top listing agent. Gina is best known for coaching brand new agents with zero experience into the top 1% of their market. She's created high-performance cultures, implemented proven systems, and guided teams through consistent 200-plus units a year, because mediocrity simply isn't on her vision board. Gina is the founder of Self-Constructed, a coaching and training company focused on identity, confidence, alignment, and leadership from the inside out. She's also the creator of Own It, a high-impact 2-day experience that equips women in real estate with clarity, leadership skills, and the courage to take bold action now, not someday. Known for her direct, no-fluff delivery, Gina teaches the deeper drivers of success, which is self-integrity, communication, boundaries, truth, and patterns that either build leaders or quietly sabotage them. Her work has launched businesses, revitalized struggling teams, and elevated professionals across industries who crave structure, confidence, and next-level execution. She's designed large-scale experimental trainings, including immersive leadership events for over 150 participants, and is currently writing Self, a transformational book focused on rebuilding the internal framework required for courage, confidence, and lasting change. And today, Gina's going to expand on her impact of her speaking, writing, and immersive experiences that challenge people to rise, grow, and fully own their future. But I want to share with you another version of Gina's bio. She was bold enough to share what she sees as her truth. So what we portray and what we hear about people, it is what it is. But here's the real one. Gina is a high school dropout. She left home at barely 17 years old. She says that she was the ugliest kid in 4th grade with buck teeth, bad hair, and beyond shy. She thanked God when she walked into a tetherball pole and they had to grind her teeth down. Books were her entire world. She left an abusive ex at 40 years old with nothing but the clothes on her back and with her kids. She sucked in her first year of real estate and not so much better at her second. Thought leadership meant being perfect, untouchable, and emotionally separate. She would not give her opinion to anyone. She always kept her thoughts bottled up. She thought asking for help meant failure and didn't rely on anyone. She built a strong exterior long before she built a strong interior. Eventually, she realized that self-integrity mattered so much more than image. She stopped performing, she stopped pretending, and she stopped apologizing for her strong beliefs. She's always read, taught, and always led in her DNA. And it's my absolute honor and pleasure to get to share with you today not only my VIP guest, but my friend, Gina Hansen.
Aw, hi, Derlin. Thank you so much for having me here. It is such an honor. It really is. And I am massively grateful. Thank you also for that god awful first bio and getting through that. Like chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. It's so boring. It bores me. I hate those. I'd rather the real one. I'm a screw up. I messed up and I've been trying to figure it out ever since, and let's go build, you know?
Well, that's real and that's raw and that's actually quite attractive, although most of us spend most of our lives trying to hide that version of us. And I think that's why when somebody gets to meet you and know you, it's automatically that they love you. So thank you for sharing some of your very, very valuable time with us. And I want you to just expound on what you've already shared through your bio. share with us a little bit about your history. We've got some little glimpses here, but then if you would share with us how you got to where you're at today.
Originally, I went into accounting mostly because when I was a kid, my mom really pushed me that direction. I'm good at math. I did not want to be an accountant. And always in school, she would get I'd pick up my classes, which were full of art and creative writing and all of the stuff that I was so passionate about. And she would scratch it all out and it would be accounting, shorthand, type. And I was just like, ugh. And I resented it. Years later, I went back to my mom and I'm so grateful that I did this. I went back to my mom and I'm like, why'd you do that? Like, why push me into accounting? I'm good at it and I'm good at math and I get that part, but there's no joy. It was just god awful. And she said, when I grew up, I wasn't allowed to take any business courses. And so when I found myself divorced, when nobody was divorced back then, when I found myself divorced with 2 kids, the only thing I knew how to do was waitress. And I was bound and determined that that would never happen to my daughter. So I wanted you to have a skill because I knew no matter what, the world would need accountants. Which is true, except for now with AI, maybe not so much, but but at least I understood why she pushed me the direction she pushed me. So I did that for forever. I was always in office managing, accounting, building up offices, all that kind of work. And then I got married, not the first one, the first bad one doesn't count. The second one, though, I got married. And when I went to go take some time off of work, I'd been there a year, and I said, hey, can I have 2 weeks off? I'm getting married. And they said, no, 1 week. And I said, no, 2. And they said, no, 1. I'm like, no, I've worked really, really hard for you and I've done a ton of overtime and I've done all this other stuff. I really want 2 weeks off. I want to go to Greece for my honeymoon, blah, 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 blah. And they said 1. I said, okay. So I went home for lunch and I came back with a box. And they're like, what are you doing? I said, I quit. Like, you can't do that. And I'm like, yeah, I can. Yeah, I can. I quit. And I did. I walked out. Long story short, they kept on trying to call me to come back. And on the honeymoon, the entire time, Greg would ask me, he'd say, well, are you going to go back? I'm like, no, I don't think so. Why? And I just knew corporate wasn't where I wanted to be. But I also knew that if they did it then, they would do it again. And I didn't want to be where somebody else had that type of control over my life where I had to ask for stuff. I just did not want to where I gave and gave and gave, but when I asked in return, I couldn't get the same back. So I took some time off and I actually took a year off, which was glorious. And then one day my husband said, you're going into sales. And I said, I'm not going into sales. Sales is a dirty word and I'm not doing that. But what had happened was we were at a Costco and we had split up and I saw some woman there selling something. I don't know what it was. And there was another woman that came up. I was talking to the woman that was selling the stuff. Another woman came up and she said, what is that? And I said, it was a weight loss something. I said, oh my gosh, these pictures here is that woman before and after, and she did this, whatever the jars were of the stuff, blah, blah, blah. So she bought 2 jars of it and 2 big, huge canisters of it. And then I hooked back up with my husband at the front of Costco and we're checking out. And the woman walked by with the 2 big, huge canisters of the stuff. And she's like, hey, Gina, I'll email you and I'll let you know how it went. Greg looked at me and he's like, who's that? I said, I don't know. He goes, what are they doing? I said, well, they bought some stuff. And he goes, well, what'd they buy? I said, I don't know. He goes, hey, hang on. How are you involved in this? I go, oh, well, I saw this one. He goes, let me get this straight. You sold something that you don't know what it is to a person that you don't know. I said, yes. And he said, you're going in sales. And that was it. So it took a while for me to process through if I did do sales, what would it look like? And I thought, well, I guess you should sell what you know. And I thought, well, what do I know? It was not much. I'm like, all right, I know clothing. There's no money there. I know a little bit about cars, but not enough to be dangerous. And that's pretty much about it. Don't ask me car questions. And then the third thing I know is houses. And I only know houses because when we grew up, Mom was a single mom back in the 60s when there were not single moms. And in order for her to augment her income, because she was a waitress, we would buy junky houses and then we would fix them up and turn around and sell them. So I've lived in a lot of houses. Matter of fact, she was brilliant. She did this. That woman really was smart. She's a pain in the butt, but she was smart. She would read, back then we got things called newspapers. And in the back of the newspapers, there were public announcements, and one of the things that was always in there were divorces, people that were going to get divorced. So divorces, and then the Planning Commission also published in the back of the newspaper in the classified ads in the very, very back. So my mom would read the Planning Commission when they would say, we're going to build here, we're going to put a bridge in here, we're going to widen these roads, we're going to put in a shopping center, whatever it was. So she always was abreast of where the building was going to be happening, the new construction. And then she would read the divorce cases, and she would line the two up and look for houses that were in those areas where there was a lot of economic development going on. And that's what we did. We bought a ton of houses and flipped them. And usually they were divorced houses, so they were torn up inside. I mean, they were god awful. I can't tell you how many things I've seen. I've seen everything from holes in the walls and phones ripped out and broken windows and boarded up stuff to carpeting that was all the way up the walls. It just ugly stuff. And it was always the same pattern. We would buy the house. The neighbors hated us because it's the ugliest house in the neighborhood. And so, there's just another problem moving in. And then we'd leave a year or 2 years later and it'd be the nicest in the neighborhood. And we did it over and over and over and over. So I know houses. And that's why I went into real estate. I didn't know where it would lead and where it would take me and what it would do with my life. I just didn't want to work corporate anymore. And I wanted the thing every real estate agent wants, right? I wanted freedom. What a joke, right? I wanted freedom and to create my own opportunities. Well, you do get to create your own opportunities. What you don't know going into it, you do get freedom. It's not what you think. It really isn't. It's very, very different than what you think is going to end up. But that's how I got into real estate. And then the other side of it, I've coached, you read my entire life. I've been tutoring since I was in 6th grade. I tutored the little kids in the neighborhood, but then I also tutored formally. They started a program up in our school, which is the coolest program ever. They took us 6th graders and they aligned us up with the 2nd grader. And so we each got matched 1-to-1. And the 2nd grader was my 2nd grader was 2 years under grade level. So they were operating at a kindergarten level. And the only thing this kid needed, I wish I remember his name. It's so cool. But the only thing this kid needed, he had like 5 or 6 or 7 brothers and sisters, and he was a baby. He just needed one-on-one. That's all he really needed. He needed somebody to sit down with them. And so every day I would sit with an hour with him and we would play learning games and we'd read and we would learn. And by the end of that year that I got to work with him, he went from kindergarten to 4th grade in reading level. And that was it. It was so cool. So in 7th grade, I was in junior high, but they bussed us back to the school. And every year I got bussed back to the grade school to work with 2nd grade kids. And so I've been doing it. I've been tutoring, teaching, coaching, training my entire life and marrying that love, which is really who I am, with this thing called real estate, which is such a wonderful big industry where you can marry whatever you are to whatever this industry is, and you can carve out that thing. And that's what this has allowed me to do, is carve out that thing. And for that, I finally found an industry that I will never leave. There'll be some periphery of me and I'll be 110 in real estate and I'll be done. No, I like this thing over here and I still get to do it. And I'm lucky enough to be in an industry where I get to do that. So that's a long answer, I think, to get to how I got here.
Love this, Gina. So when I met you, maybe just over a year and a half ago, and instant friends, right? No doubt. When I met you, you didn't go out of your way to tell me you were in real estate, and you really aren't. The way I know you and the way I want to make sure I present you is you did your real estate sales, you've done all of that, but at this point in your life, you're really pouring in to other agents. So you know the industry, you know the hustle and the grind. You know the depth of the trust that's required for such a high trust sales. Right? You're to your point, you're not selling clothes, right?
No.
Or even a car. Like, home is where the heart is for a reason. So something so highly emotional, something so largely financial that affects not only your today, but definitely your financial tomorrow. And
Yeah.
so, you and I have both seen all walks of life in the real estate industry and in sales in particular. There's all different types of people that call themselves sales professionals. Let's dive into the sales side for just a little bit. And then I really want to unpack your other part of what you're up to in your life with Self-Constructed and your future book that you're going to be sharing with the world, hopefully as early as next year. Let's talk about sales, because we haven't had on this podcast yet that angle. And sales is a huge industry. It's
Mm.
also one of the few industries that you can out earn professionals such as attorneys and doctors and those kinds of things. So what makes a sales professional, successful sales professional, so much different than somebody who's not maybe as successful in sales?
What a great question. What a great question. Okay. What makes someone successful? I'm going to go with there's two kinds of success. There's the icky kind that nobody wants to do. And and you can do it. I've been in many states, was moved around a little bit while I was doing startup and turnaround offices. And then we've moved around a bit as well. In every single area, there's a crooked salesperson. They're big and they're crooked and they're awful and they're snakes and they will lie, cheat, steal, tell you whatever it is you want to hear. And you, as a consumer, will believe them because you see signs everywhere or gargantuan postcards or bus benches or whatever it is that they happen to do everywhere. And you think because you see that, that person must be making a lot of money. Ergo, they must be good. And you think those two things go together, and they don't. They really don't. What really makes someone good, the ones that are really good, and there's also one of these in every single area, is there's somebody who just flat out gives a shit more than anybody else. And I don't mean to be crass about it, but the reality is this, is they care and they're gonna care, and they care about your property. And if it means that they don't make as much money, and not that they're not worth it, because I'm not saying that either. Or they have to do this thing over here to make that go for you over there, and that's in your best interest. They're going to do it every single time. And maybe they don't know all the answers. Maybe they know 99 of the 100 answers, but they certainly don't know 100 of them. But it doesn't matter because they'll go find it out and they'll figure it out and they will help you. But they care. I don't know how anybody sells when they don't believe in what it is that they do. And if you don't believe, and it's so trite, you hear it all the time, but the reality is this. I knew when I sold that I would protect you better than anybody else. And I knew that the other agent out there that would take the listing and say that your house was worth, name a number, doesn't matter, 650, when we all know your house is worth 575. That's just flat out what it's worth. And I don't care what you do. I don't care how much you put signs out there. It is not going to be 650. But they would lie to you because they'll get the listing and they don't care, but it's going to hurt you in the long run. And when you have that kind of integrity, not that kind of integrity, when you have the other kind of integrity that says, I know you might not use me, but you need to know this. And here's why and how. And here's the numbers that show this. And here's why I care. Because if you do that, you're going to get screwed because it's not going to sell for 650 and it won't sell for 6.25. It won't sell for 6. And by the time you finally get it down to 575 because they've beaten you up, you're 6 months into it. And now everybody thinks there's something wrong with your house. And now your house is going to sell for 5.25. And it's not your fault. It's not. And that other person should be shot, literally. It's horrible. It's a horrible thing that they do because they don't have the integrity. When you have to have integrity, you have to care, and you have to always be learning and growing and trying your, I guess you just got to give a shit. You really do. You got to care. You got to care. You do need to learn and grow because it's your job to know your industry. That's your job. You should know your contract. I can't tell you how many agents don't know their contracts. You should know your contracts. You should know the tools of your trade. And then you need to care more than anybody else. And when you do that, when you really, really care and you really stand on that, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like if I don't help you, you're going to get somebody that's not going to help you and they're going to hurt you. And I want to make sure that never happens to you. But also, if I help you at the end of the day, even if the transaction sucked, and some of them do, I still know I did my best and I still know I helped you. And I can sleep at night with that. Easily. Easily. Now, doesn't mean that you have to take everyone's crap either. There's definitely been people I fired. You need to know that one too. You need to know when to fire somebody.
This was excellent insight. Thank you so very much for sharing that. And a big part of how you teach and where you teach from is inside out. So that's not only for sales professionals, specifically realtors, but that's also what you teach in your self-constructed. So can you talk to us a little bit about that and the journey that you get to take people on through that?
I'm going to start off with this. I can teach you skills all day long. Anybody can teach skills. You don't even know how to do the thing to be able to teach the skills because you can pull it out of people and you can get the skills there. You can teach skills all day long. But if I don't dig down inside, you won't do it. You won't do it because of fear. You won't do it because you don't think you're able. You do it because you don't think you deserve it. Whatever there is, there's something in there that even if we all know what we should be doing, we all know that. And yet we don't. So I feel like you need to go on the inside and get that part straight first. And if I get that part straight first, I don't even need to teach you skills. And so here's my proof. In the beginning, back when you could do this, I cold called like crazy. I mean, that's what I did. I literally cold called expired listings. I did 100 dials a day, blah, 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 blah. I didn't know what I was doing. I still got appointments though, because I had the skills there. That part doesn't matter. You can just, skills are skills are skills are skills, right? I didn't get good until I dug down inside of myself and understood how important it was that I was the person in front of them. And once I started to get that component in there in my head straight, then my sales took off and I took off like crazy.
Before we dive any deeper into this conversation, I want to take a quick moment to share a tool that has significantly improved my life, and that's called Growth Day. It's like having world-class mentors right in your pocket. There are daily challenges that help grow your confidence, your inspiration, and your drive. Check out the show notes for your link to a free trial, and don't let another moment pass you by without checking out Growth Day.
I made up my mind last year that I wanted to teach on stage at my real estate, my big convention for my real estate company. Big convention. And I was beating my head up against a wall. I don't do sales anymore. I do coaching, so I don't have the numbers that many of the people in my company have, those types of numbers to be, asked on stage. And I knew it would be an uphill battle, which is fine. So, but but I was really struggling with putting myself out there saying, I know this person's doing 1,000 units a year. I'm not doing anything near like that anymore, but I still feel like I have value and worth and I want to be up on that stage. And I want to, and I'm beating my head against a wall and I'm not getting anywhere. And as I was walking through that process, I had all this doubt and stuff going on in my head of, well, who are you anyway? And da 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 da. Da. And all the crazy stuff that goes on up in here when we get ready to take a new step in faith and go do something that frankly scares the hell out of us, which is crazy because if you really look at the things that should scare the hell out of you, I mean, I live in Florida. I should be much more worried about, getting eaten by a gator or something and not trying to get up on stage and speak of all crazy things. But I made a vow, and I don't know why I thought this was important, but I did. So I made a vow that I was going to go for, I think it was 5 months. I was going to go for 5 months, and I wasn't going to eat any sugar, and I was going to just eat really healthy and really clean. And for me, sugar is definitely a beast. So I wasn't going to have any sugar, nor was I going to have any alcohol because alcohol turns into sugar. So I made that vow for 5 months. I'm going to do that. And then I said, I'm going to get that speaking gig. And then the day after, if I want to have sugar or have a celebratory drink, whatever, who cares? Don't care. And I remember as I was kind of going through that process of thinking about why this was so important and what did this matter and all that, I started to gain more and more confidence as time went towards marching towards getting that speaking gig. And eventually I had nailed the gig, but it still hadn't happened. It's still, now I've said I'm not going to eat sugar and I still have another 8 weeks or whatever before I'm actually going to be up on stage. But I'm gaining in confidence. And it was a weird phenomenon. I couldn't put two and two together. Why is not eating sugar helping my self-confidence? Like those are diametrically opposed on some level, or they have nothing to do with each other, or whatever. So, yeah, so I was sitting there thinking about it. And I remember distinctly one Sunday, I was kind of processing through and I thought, I really do not know why, but I thought I want to dive into Dante's 9 levels of hell. Now, again, I don't know why. It just interested me. So I thought I'm gonna Google the 9 levels of hell and what they are. And as I was reading through what they are, it starts off the very first level of hell is just flirting with the idea. And then you start going down through, betrayal or, gluttony, jealousy, gluttony, et cetera, and you end up at betrayal. And I thought, well, that's interesting. You start with flirting with the idea, like, I can have the sugar. The sugar can be in my house. The cookie can be there. The cookie won't tempt me. It's just a cookie. I can have it there. I can smell the cookie. I can make the cookies. I can nibble on the cookie. You start with that flirting. It'll be okay. I won't do it. And I realized that all of when we turn and go down a path that's not good for us, it always starts with that flirting with it. It always starts with that. I can do that. But then why is betrayal the 9th level? Like that did not make any sense to me. And so I started really kind of playing with what's going on here. And then I thought, well, I eat the cookie. I say I'm not going to eat the cookie, and then I do eat the cookie, and then I end up eating a bunch of cookies, and then I want more cookies, and then I want your cookies in spite of just my cookies. And as I'm going through the levels and relating it to cookies, it's completely making sense. But I realized that at the very end, betrayal was the one I had to play with. So I started playing with the idea. Now, I know, I have many friends where one of the partners in the relationship has had an affair, and I'm not here to judge one way or the other, but I do know this: at some point, when if they're trying to heal through it and stay together, at some point, the person who had the affair, the betrayer, will turn to the betrayed person and say, "Why can't you just get over this?" And the betrayed person is trying desperately, horribly, but they've been broken into 1,000,000,000 pieces. And they're trying to get their pieces picked back up again so that they can even deal with being a human being again in order to deal with what has happened, because that's what betrayal does. It breaks you into 1,000,000,000 pieces. And I realize that if I say I am not going to eat the cookie, and then I eat the cookie, which is such a silly little idea to play with. But if I eat the cookie, then I'm betraying myself. And if I'm betraying myself, then I'm breaking myself into 1,000,000,000 pieces. And how am I supposed to have confidence in my own self if I'm constantly going around betraying myself and breaking myself into 1,000,000,000 pieces shattered on the ground? I can't even take the time, or I'm not even taking the time, wasn't, don't on occasion take the time to build myself back up into a human being so I can deal with what it is that I've been doing by continually eating the cookie when I said I wasn't going to. Now, there's nothing wrong with eating a stupid cookie. If I say I'm going to eat a cookie and I'm going to eat a cookie, fine. It's when I say I'm not going to eat a cookie and I lie to myself, which is weird, even the concept of lying to myself, and then I eat the cookie. Then I broke myself into a million pieces. There's nothing wrong with saying, I'm eating a cookie. Who cares? I'm eating a cookie. There's no morality in eating the cookie. The morality is in lying to myself, breaking my confidence into 1,000,000,000 pieces, and then trying to repair and trying to appear whole when the reality is I'm shattered fragments all over. And that is what I realized. And I would like to tell you that I was 25 when I realized this, but it was last year. I mean, it's fairly recent that I finally realized it. And now I'm hyper aware. Again, it's not eating the cookie, saying I'm not going to eat the cookie and then eating the cookie. And I'm hyper aware of the lies that I have lived for 60, what am I, 2 years of my life. I have lived those, I've broke myself over and over and over and over and over again. So it's no wonder that when I go to step out into a new venture or do something, which most of the world's like, you're brave, you're brave, you're doing this. No, I'm terrified on the regular basis on the inside because I've broken myself apart over and over and over again. So I came up with this concept called self-integrity. And the basic concept is decide there is something in your life that you aren't doing that you want to do, and you're not doing it out of fear or God knows, fear of failure, fear of success, failure of, whatever else is in the middle of it, but you're not doing it. Something's holding you back. There's also something in your life that you know you shouldn't be doing, and you are. And it could be as simple and as stupid as me and eating a stupid cookie. It could be something as simple as that. But whatever that thing is, I highly encourage you to take some time to process through, because we all have something. Maybe it is that you shouldn't have that drink. Maybe it is the cookie. Maybe it's you said you'd go walk around the block. Maybe it said you call your mom and you didn't do it. Maybe you said that you would clean your desk. I don't know, as I look at my desk, whatever it is, there is something that you know you should be doing that you just keep on putting off, that is hanging over you like this. Stop letting that thing hang over you. Make a decision. Decide. The word decide means to cut off. Cut off and do that thing, and then do the little teeny tiny thing like that on a consistent basis. This does not mean change everything in your life and take on, go run a marathon tomorrow. It doesn't mean that. It really doesn't. It's the little tiny thing that you don't understand is eroding away your confidence. Confidence, fidelity with faith, that is eroding away your faith in who you are and breaking yourself into a million pieces so that you can stand up on whatever stage in life you want to stand up on in confidence.
Love this answer, Gina. So here's my big takeaway. My big takeaway is when we don't fulfill to ourselves what we say we're going to do, and then we don't hold ourselves accountable, but inside, that inside job that we're doing, it's betrayal. And now, like you said, I see this beautiful depiction through this heartbreaking picture of being shattered into a million different little fragments. and then trying to put these pieces back together. And to come from that place, now we have this expectation of others to show up with full integrity, but we're not even showing up with full integrity to ourselves, for what we say we're committed to, what we say we want to do. And then we show up kind of like the easy path. But that easy path is so destructive. And then we're not showing up in our best light, our best self, because we're over here with this internal battle. And talk about dimming your light. So if we continue to show up this way, we're really going to create some lifelong behaviors and actions and patterns that show up that keep us stuck, essentially. What's possible if we get this right? So you've done this work. You're able to figure this out on a much broader level than I can. What happens when we get this right?
Christy, if I show up in the humility of knowing how fragile the hold is, I'm one cookie away, right? One cookie away. If I'm one cookie away, then what is somebody else one cookie away from? Instead of having I'm perfect and, everything's fine and I'm fine, thank you very much. Fine. Instead of showing up like that, I can show up with a bit of humility and understanding that none of us as strong as we think we are, and with a little bit of grace. And that ties in a lot of grace. And that ties into so much. That ties into, I thought way before in leadership that there had to be leadership and not leadership. And there was a clean line of demarcation and you didn't cross that line. But then I'm not real and I can't help people authentically change and grow. And I certainly can't ask them to be authentic and vulnerable. And I'm on this side of this with a shell wrapped around me. That's crazy. So there's that component of it. I thought that I was self-taught with everything, raised up kind of on my own. I'm the eldest, and my mom was working 24/7, so I was pretty much alone. And so I thought I was self-taught with books until I sat down and one day decided to write some gratitude letters to some people. And as I was thinking about it, I was on a plane. I distinctly remember this. I brought cards on a plane, and I wrote gratitude letters. And I wrote, I don't know, 6 or 8 of them, and I had the envelopes already. So when I landed, I could put them in the envelope and pop them in. And what happened, 2 things happened. One, I got a bunch of phone calls 2 weeks later from people that I wrote letters to, because then I could pour out how much they'd changed me and helped me in my life. And so therefore blessing them. The one blessing I wasn't expecting was understanding that the only reason I am here today is because 10,000 million people, even when I was that god-awful, horrible, dropout, snot-nosed, bucket, whatever child I was, were reaching out their hands and trying to help me. And I didn't realize that. I didn't realize all the opportunities that have been gifted to me from all around. And again, that's a place of humility. So if I can come at it from that, and if I can be vulnerable and real, then I can understand when somebody else has got their shell and try and help them also. The third component is I have had to learn through being a team leader and coaching and teaching and training. I have a saying of, I can't care more about your life than you care about your life. And I'm not going to. And that's what I had to do, because in the beginning, I cared way too much about your life. And I was desperately, horribly trying to rescue you from your own life. And then I said, forget it. I can't. If you don't care, I don't care. And I put up what I call shit shield and did that. But then I realized there's another component to that. And the other component to that is I feel like my goal in life, my job in life is to be a herald, an HER, herald, in that I can't care more about your life than you care. But the honest truth is I see you going this direction and you said you wanted to go that direction. So you can do what you want to do. It's your life. But that's the direction I see you going, and I just want you to know that. And if you want, I'll walk alongside you and we'll go this direction. And if you really want to go that direction, you can go that direction. But at least I've done my component of it, which is to be honest and truthful about it and say that you're going there. And for me, that has a whole bunch of stuff wrapped in it, like risking value, risking our friendship, risking condemnation, risking canceling, risking all the crazy things that when you speak your truth happen. So ask me your question again. But I think you said, what is the steps that we can do? What happens when we get it right? What happens when we get it right? What happens when we get it right is we get to live the great adventure, because I don't know if I speak my truth and I don't eat my cookie and I deny the thing over here to get stronger over here, and I understand that I'm only one cookie away. So that gives me the humility that I need to be able to help other people to go, I have effed up a million things in my life, and I really want to just walk this direction. And if you're walking this direction too, that's very cool. I'd love to walk with you.
How incredible is that? You poured in so many things that we could take away instantly to like upgrade our life today. Let me ask you a question when it relates to sales professionals, because those of us that are in sales that are constantly needing to morph how we show up for others and provide at a level that's really trust focused and rapport building and then delivering on those promises and those kinds of things, as opposed to just completing a task that sometimes a lot of jobs require. So sales is its own beast, right? Where do you think that a lot of sales professionals go wrong? Is it internal or is it external in their systems and their thinking and their I don't know, is it in their internal thoughts and behaviors, or is it which shows up externally? Like, where do you think salespeople, because you coach so many high trust sales professionals, where do you I read in your bio inside out. So unpack that for us for a minute.
So good. I believe that if anything you want to do in order to grow, you got to go down and in, and then you blossom out. As you show up externally is what's going on internally. Where sales people, where I, let's take this down to home, where I messed up was I looked at it as a number and a checkbox and things to mark off the list to make sure, look, I've got a 5-point plan here and we have to hit our 5-point plan. And I remember so much in the beginning when I did, oh my God, my first listing appointment, I had this 3-ring binder that was like like a D-ring binder that had the sales presentation in it. That thing weighed like 100 pounds. I have grooves from carrying, and I would set it down and you could see the client's eyes like, and it bored them and it bored me too. But it was a box. This is the process. We have boxes to check in order and the goal was right in that I want to help you in the best way possible do what you said you wanted to do was your house, but I'm not helping you in the best way possible. All I had was the goal, the checkbox. And I remember that I heard somebody switch over. This is such a great illustration for this. They switched over how they did a listing appointment. And I remember that he taught from the stage, and this is how he did. He said, "This is my listing presentation. It's a yellow legal pad." And I was like, okay, this changed everything. And here's how. So I shut up on the appointment and I sat down and I grabbed my yellow legal pad and I just looked at you and I said, like, who are and all that. And this is not the first sentence out, but as we started to dive in, rather than that 3-ring binder, I said, "So what freaks you out about this whole situation?" And you would look at me and I'm like, there must be something. And all it was just a question designed to get you to talk so I could find out who you were and what you were about and help you. And that was the beginning of it. Really, what's underneath all of that, what's underneath the difference between this and a 3-ring binder is I know what you want. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. You want to sell your house. That's why I'm here. But I don't know how to help you best. And in order to know that, I have to build relationship. You've invited me in your house. That implies that there's relationship. I need to build a relationship with you. And the only way I can build a relationship with you is by shutting up and asking you questions and then really paying attention to try and understand what's going on underneath and to ask more questions, because when you say one thing, that might mean something different, or I might not understand what it is that you mean. So help me understand what that is that you really mean. And then as I'm going through this process, which I had to really learn this one because I'm so goal oriented. And Christy, you know that because you know me and you know I'm stupid goal oriented and I don't want to be that way. I want to be more relationship. So I had to learn the craft of it. And it's asking questions, asking more questions to clarify. It's putting emotions in there. So now I can say, gosh, you must have felt like this. No, I really felt like that. So now we're taking from the thing to the feeling because there's both of them in there. And then I can understand your feelings and then I can acknowledge them. And then we can start to get to how the relationship is so that I can help you get to where you want to go. And I didn't understand the importance of it, but I will tell you this. After every real estate transaction, every sales transaction, at some point, 99% of them, something's going to go haywire, wrong, crazy. Something's going to go wrong. It just does. And when it does, and we have a really good relationship, we can fix it like this because we've got trust. And we know that we're right here, just there's a little schism right now because this thing is broken, but we can go in there and we can fix it really, really quickly. And when we don't have that, it's like we're starting here and it's ripped asunder. And it's when you have a wound and the doctor cuts the sides of it so they can stitch it clean versus leaving it like this because it doesn't stitch like that. It just doesn't. That's what trust is. Trust means that when it does, it's nice and clean and we can go back in there and we can sew it back up again. And that's the big difference that real estate people, salespeople need to understand is how we live in a world of AI. I can't tell anymore if a video's, it used to be, well, I could tell that video's fake. And now the only reason I can tell that it's fake is because there is no way that Princess Diana was doing that. I mean, you can't tell anymore. And the more we get to that, where you can't tell what's real on here and who's saying what, you can't tell. This is what you can tell. So you better spend time with this because this is what it is that's going to matter more than all the rest of the stuff. And it's an inside job. It's totally an inside job.
Oh my God, that's incredible. You landed on something that is so poignant, and I think a lot of sales professionals miss it. Harvard Business Review did this incredible research and found that 95% of buyers' decisions are emotionally based. And then we follow that decision up with logic. So you said to talk to hear, not
Yeah.
to hear. It's got to make sense, right? But it's backed up by logic. We make decisions with our heart. If you're sitting down, even for a listing presentation, they're either buying you or they're not. A lot of times they're like, oh, I'm going to help them sell. No, they're buying into, do I trust you? Can I rely on you? That trust factor is so, so big, and you nailed it. Thank you for all of it, the way you perfectly described it in illustrations and all. Part of what we're up to in the peopling world is the Be the Change challenge. What is one actionable idea, step, thing that you can share with us today that the people who are listening can infuse that into their world today, this week, and have that ripple effect in their sphere and be the change in their world? What's one thing that we could take away from this conversation and implement in an actionable way so that we can be the change?
There's been so many times in my life, especially coming from the West Coast and having the belief systems that I do, where I shut up and I didn't talk and I didn't share my true feelings with people because I felt like my feelings that were different than their feelings somehow detracted from them or took away from them or for some reason would cause conflict. I have no idea why. Maybe they would, I don't know, cause conflict. But I distinctly remember one time when I said, you know what, I'm going to start telling how I really feel about things. And I'm just going to start talking about things that I think that matter and how I really feel about it. And I remember prepping people in the room. I'm like, I'm going to talk about some things. I'm going to have strong opinions about this. And then I went straight into, I don't like babies. And I remember people cracked up. I'm like, I mean, they're fine and all, but they puke on you. And I'm really not keen with that. And I really just wish that people would hang on to them until they were a little bit older and I knew they weren't going to vomit on me. Or maybe I hold them away from me so that I don't get vomited on. But it freaks me out. I don't like it. And to be a woman and say, I don't like babies, people are like, right? But the point of it is you have truths and you have feelings and statements and all those kinds of things. And we don't need to be bullhorning it over the world and then, oh, I believe, blah, blah. We don't need that. But in conversations with people you love, it is perfectly acceptable to go, help me understand that one and why you feel that way and come at it from that kind of a place. And then following up with, I feel this way. And it's okay if they don't feel the same way you do. And if they want, they can ask you questions too so that you can clarify what it is that you believe and what you think. But if I don't share the things that I really feel that I think are really important, then you don't really know me. And if you don't really know me and I say relationships important and I want to really know you, then why would I be so chicken shit of sharing part of me too? So I think that we should stand in who we are in love, and we should speak our truth in love. And if the only point it is that it's going to hurt somebody or make me feel good for some crazy reason, then that's not really in love. But if it really is in love so that I can deepen a relationship and so that you understand maybe why I feel or think or do or whatever crazy things I'm doing, then that's a worthwhile thing to be saying. And not only that, we are worthy of having that unique experience that we do and have and opening ourselves up vulnerably enough so that someone can go, but wait, why do you feel that way? What about this? Oh, hang on. Now I got to think about that. Let me think about that. Maybe I'll clarify my position. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll start thinking a little bit different, but it's okay. But it doesn't really matter. None of that matters because what really matters is that I have relationship and I get to know a little piece of you that maybe I wouldn't have known otherwise. And conversely, maybe you get to know a little piece of me that you didn't know either. So I'm going to say be brave, speak your truth, do it in love, know what the cookie is, whatever your cookie is in your life that you need to be doing, not doing, and love yourself enough to know that you're worthy enough and valuable enough to eat the cookie if you say you're going to eat the cookie, and don't eat the cookie if you're not going to say you're going to not eat the cookie, and share who you really, really are in honesty and truth. And maybe you get hurt and maybe you don't, and it's all okay. We'll live.
I love that. We're all okay. We'll live. Those are words to live by, my friend. That's incredible. And giving grace. I heard, in all of that is giving grace to ourselves so we can give grace to others. So, and you are a grace giver. You've given me grace a number of times over the many months that we've got to develop our friendship. So thank you for that. Well, I cannot thank you enough for your very, very valuable time, your insight, your perspective, your thoughts, and your heart. So, Gina Hansen, thank you so much for being with us on the Peopling Podcast. I'm going to make sure to have your contact information where people can connect with you, follow you on social media, and get to know where to find your book in the near future called Self. I'm so excited for it and can't wait to hear yourself poured out into the book. But thank you so much for being here.
Christy, thank you. It was a pleasure and honor, and you give a great gift to the world by doing this. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, friends, for listening. Until next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the Peopling Podcast, and grab your copy of the Peopling book on Amazon, and let's keep this connection movement going. Until next time, be curious, be kind, and keep peopling like you mean it.